Welcome to Working and Wondering.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Chris.
And I'm Martha.
We're the hosts for this adventure today.
Yep. And we are also a Venturesome couple.
That's right. Check us out on all the social media platforms and venturesomecouple.com. But we are not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about Alaska.
Yes. So we've already done 9 podcast series of Alaska, and we've realized there was one more we needed to talk about.
We kind of left out a very important piece of that. And what is that?
Alaskan mindset.
Right? You got to get your mind right before you go up there so you know what to expect, because we're seeing YouTube videos recently of people that seem to be caught off guard by Alaska.
Yeah, and very put off about it, and it's very disturbing.
Yeah, because your expectations and your reality should match, right? Like if you're expecting something and you show up and it's not that sucks. That's a bad experience.
It does. It does. And we've lived it and we want to share it.
Yeah, we definitely can say that we're experts for Alaska. You were kind of born, raised Alaskan Indian.
Well, kind of. So I was born in Alaska. I'm Alaska Native Indian.
Yep.
And raised there, met my husband there. We got married in Alaska and had our daughter in Alaska.
And we spent a lot of time back and forth, thanks to Uncle Sam.
Yeah, we lived there about half our marriage, which is almost 25 years.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Alaska mindset. First and foremost, that's hilarious. Alaska is the last frontier.
Yeah, it's the 49th state, and it's still pretty much rural.
Yeah, it's remote AF is the best way to put it.
Yeah, there's certain places in Alaska you can only get there by boat or plane.
Right? So, first and foremost, get your mind right. It is wilderness, period, first and foremost. So, what else is it from, what else we'll say is Alaska a little more insulated compared to a lot of what's going on? We'll call it our major cities.
For the most part, Alaska is very laid back, and they're not politically correct on some things. And
they're not sensitive. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to find a bunch of Alaskans that are going to be involved with I'm going to say this politely, political idealism.
Yes.
People do not follow agendas.
No.
Alaskans are Alaskans.
Yep.
So just know that if you're concerned about billboards and, let's pick on both sides, Harris 2024 or Trump 2024, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of that. Woke is not a thing up there. Sorry to say that if that offends you, but Alaskans are tough people by nature.
They are. We are. I am.
Yes. I'm a transplant. You'll learn more about what that means in a minute. So we're going to go through truly what the mindset is of an Alaskan and some very important terms that you should know going up there, because it'll make your life easier. Because when you hear somebody say something like breakup, you may think relationship, but it has absolutely nothing to do with that.
No, it doesn't.
So let's go through these things and talk through them, and we'll try to give you guys some insight on everything Alaska. So when you show up, you have a wonderful experience.
Yes. And we love visitors and tourism in Alaska.
It's money.
It's money, but it also gives you a chance to see a different part of the world and experience something different. So we're hoping these insights will help prepare your mind so you have the most fantastic time in Alaska.
Yeah. And we've briefly touched on this. So Alaskans are self-reliant. Mm-hmm. They live in a way that is kind of an untamed frontier. They believe that if you're not self-reliant, you're not going to survive in the state.
There's a lot of times, and we'll just say wintertime, or we've had a couple major earthquakes. So there are times where the stores may be limited access, and same with fuel. I mean, we were there November 18th when we had a really big earthquake over 7.0.
Yeah.
And both you and I were at work, and they shut down roads. They've shut down places. I got to go back home early, and I went to the gas station and I filled up all our gas cans because we were prepared if we were going to lose power. I mean, there could be natural disasters, and that's something they prep for a lot of these.
Yeah. I mean, people have natural disasters in every location of where they live, right? I mean, Florida, it's hurricanes and tornadoes, Midwest tornadoes, earthquakes in California. So it's not uncommon. The difference is the infrastructure of Alaska isn't great. So if you go on Amazon and you're like, oh, I'll just order this overnight, you might get it 10 days later.
Yeah, 5 to 10 days later, depending on where the item's coming from.
And if it came up on the ferry
Yeah.
versus, or the barge, shouldn't say
Yeah.
ferry. If it came up on the barge versus a truck.
Or a plane.
So, yes,
Yeah.
know that self reliance is really a big deal for Alaskans. And the reason we're telling you this as a traveler, because you have to adopt that mindset going up there so that you're prepared. So that if a tire pops, yes, you can get tires. There's tire stores in Anchorage,
Mhm.
but it might be a while before they get it.
Yeah, depending on the type of tire you have. And also too, you won't be able to drive to another state. Like a natural disaster happens, you can't just drive to Connecticut. I mean, you can, but you gotta go through Canada and it's a long drive, so it's not like a day trip.
Right. So, the other thing about Alaska that is extremely important to the locals and really important to us is community.
Yes. Oh, community is everything up there.
Yeah, it's your people,
Mhm.
and we joke in the RV world and we say find your tribe, but that's where it comes from for
Yeah.
us because of Martha's history and her background and ethnicity. For me, it's the Alaska mindset as a whole. Is I agree with the people of Alaska and the way they live and the subsistence living and the self reliance and not having everything provided via government. And so we're trying to stay out of the political realm, but we want you to understand what people up there think.
Yeah, and it's majority, so it's not 100%. I mean, let's give that a little
Oh,
disclosure.
always, always. That's everywhere, though. So, having a community, you'll hear some funny terms. You might hear sourdough. What's a sourdough?
An Alaskan old timer.
Yeah, that's your OAF,
It's more just the bread.
right? It is bread,
It
but it
is
is an
bread.
old timer. That's so if you hear somebody say, "Oh, he's a sourdough," that just means he's been in Alaska a really long time. If you hear another term called chichaco,
And what is that, Chris?
that's what I was for a long time. That's your newbie. That's somebody that hasn't been through the winters of Alaska and is new to the state. So don't be surprised if a sourdough calls you a chichaco. It could happen. And just know it's not an insult. It's just a term of people that are new to the state. So if you're traveling, they're probably going to call you a snowbird.
Yeah, and as us Alaskans, we can be very blunt.
That's why I warned them,
Nope.
right? Like, I think that was the third thing we said. Can't be sensitive, right? They
Yeah.
are not sensitive. Alaskans going to call it how it
Oh
is.
Lord. So
But
my grandma in Alaska, like she's now passed, but she was very blunt. She told it how it was, and just it is what it is. I mean, she wasn't mean. She's just the truth.
yeah. So being an Alaskan isn't about a place that you were born. It's about accepting a community. It's accepting a way of life. It's so accepting that, the self-reliance side of things. But there's some things that you need to know terminology wise to make your
Mhm.
life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So tell them what termination dust
Oh
is.
gosh. Termination dust is a dirty word that you say towards the end of summer when you start seeing the snow peak on top of the mountains.
In RV life, that means get the hell out of Alaska.
Yeah, winter is coming.
if you've seen the what were those Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah, Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
winter is coming. If you see termination dust, that's your exit strategy to head to Florida or Arizona
Yes.
because that's not good.
Okay, now here's somewhere I haven't spent time in, but you have the bush.
I have a lot of credibility when it comes to being an Alaskan because I had two different jobs that sent me all over the state of Alaska. The bush, also known as villages,
Mhm.
are the remote parts of Alaska. And keep in mind, that one can be a touchy subject, right?
Yeah,
Like people will get offended if you ask them if they're from the bush. But on the other hand, they're probably from the bush.
they'll tell
So,
you if they're from the bush.
right. Because you'll go into we'll say Bass Pro Shop
Yeah,
or Cabela's, and then what's the other one?
Sportsman's
Thank
Warehouse.
you. You'll see bush orders.
Yes. So for me, when I was in high school in Juneau, and I worked at Safeway Cars,
Mhm.
which is a grocery store. I would help fulfill the Bush orders. So it's more than just sporting stores. So in like groceries, because Bush is remote areas where they don't have grocery stores. They might have like a little mom and pop's convenience store where prices are outrageous. But folks from the Bush will come into Anchorage or Juneau, like the bigger cities
Yeah.
or a city in general, and they'll stock up on their groceries. And
Yeah.
so we would package order those up and
Right.
mail them out.
And sometimes they order them remotely so they can
Mhm.
get a hold of a grocery store or whatever, we'll say Costco, and they order thousands of dollars worth of stuff right at one time and they
Yeah.
do a bush order because they're usually paying to have it shipped on a plane as
Mhm.
cargo. So if you do a little bit or you do a lot, it's still going to be extremely expensive. So
Yeah.
the idea is to maximize the cost and order a bunch of it. So if you see something that says bush orders, or you're talking about an individual that's bush,
Mhm.
living in the bush, know that that's somebody that lives in remote Alaska. Now, I will say, because I'm going to go off on a tangent here, that television show, The Alaska Bush People, is bullshit. That
Oh,
was not real.
was not real.
That was reality in the worst case. Those were people from Washington that
Mhm.
were playing a part that got arrested and thrown in jail for fraud, defrauding the Alaskan government.
Yes.
So just know, don't go believe in any of the crap you see on reality TV.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of ours because we've seen a lot of the reality shows, and there's one about a homestead.
Oh, yeah.
And it was funny. Chris and I, we were on a date night in Anchorage at Glacier Brew House, and we
Yes.
saw one of the women there from the homestead all dolled up, wearing heels and everything.
Right.
Not that you can't do that, but their show's claim to fame is that they do everything on the homestead.
Right.
And I
And
was
they're
like,
so super remote.
and she's over there at the bar just drinking and eating, living her best life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who's watching the homestead? And-
It gets a bit further than that. So I was down in Homer, which is where the homestead is.
yes.
And I was at the local gun / tackle shop down there when I was working for the NRA. And one of the main characters that's a sourdough, we'll call him an
Yeah.
oldie, on the show was in the gun shop, and all the locals were busting his balls about being at the gun shop and who's babysitting the homestead and how's life. And this individual, and I'm being very polite, not calling out who it is on the show, because we actually don't mind the show.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's still on. It's been years.
I
But
don't know.
anyways, back to what we're talking about. They were busting his balls about this, and he's like, look, I do what the directors tell me. They script this. This homestead is 5 miles outside of Homer, right down the street from Safeway.
Like 15-minute drive. So if they don't get their meat or fish for the winter,
They hunt at Costco like the rest of us.
No, they hunt at Safeway.
That's true. That was a
Yeah.
local down there. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a squirrel tangent, but don't believe reality shows. Alaska is not as bad as you think, and it's not as stupid as they make it.
Yeah. And when we had moved back in 2012, we went to that gun shop, Wild Wild West. And
Wild West Guns.
Wild West Guns. Thank you. Because we had our firearm shipped there.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious because you and our daughter had went in there to get some parts. And what happened?
They were filming the reality show with people that they flew in from the lower 48, and every single bit of that was staged. And they made us go in the back door, so because we were real customers.
Yeah.
And we had to deal with them behind the back door in the back room because they were filming their quote reality show, which got canceled.
And the funny part is like that following remember over at Sullivan Arena they would have that sportsman show?
Oh my God, and the dude showed up in a tux.
Yeah, they showed up like in a fancy tux, and they had the TV playing with their show, and like no one would go up to their booth.
And they were doing autographs, and the Alaskans were like, cool story, bro. Nobody gives a bleep about your fake ass show.
Point being, Alaskans are real. Real Alaskans are real.
Yes, you're gonna get what you get there.
Just like you see us, Venturesome couple.
Yep.
You get what you get.
Yep. So this is the near and dear term right here. Extra toughs.
Oh yeah, we are all about extra toughs, and I have 2 pairs of extra toughs.
What do you call them?
My pretty toughs. And
Hers are pretty because they're, well, you explain what's on them.
So they're like rain boots, and they go up to just below your knee, and then with the female version, they fold down halfway or down to your ankle, and then in the inside it's lined with like
Neoprene,
and it's like fish or some mermaids or something like that. So I have a pair, our daughter has a pair, and then Chris and I, we bought a shorter pair that goes over your ankle that you just pull on little boots.
Yep.
And those are our RV boots.
Yeah, they're little slip-ons. They're like the next level of rubber boots, and they're neoprene insulated on the inside, but they're really good quality. It's not like those cheapy $5 rubber boots at Walmart. So you'll see people in Alaska are serious about their extra toughs. You will see women in dresses with extra toughs.
Heck yeah. That was me.
Yes, because it gets nasty. The weather can be crap.
Yeah, down here in the lower 48, like in Florida. And
Whoa, what's the lower 48? You can't drop a new term on them.
The lower 48 is the continental U.S. So all the states south of Alaska with exception of Hawaii. So we
Right.
don't count Hawaii or Alaska in the lower 48.
That is correct. So go back to your extra tough. Sorry, you
Okay.
switched on them.
So in the lower 48, I haven't had a chance to wear my pretty tufts or extra tufts.
It's because
But
it's hotter than balls in Florida.
but our mer boots, we wear all the time in our RV when it's
So
been
the mer
raining out.
boots, you see, she keeps dropping terms on you, and I got to come back and explain them. Mer boots, those are the ankle high extra toughs. They just basically go over your ankles. They're like a high top tennis shoe size.
Yes. And those are great. So, we have Callie, which she's down here on the ground. If you're watching this on YouTube, right in
Right.
front of us. Um, when we're out walking her, like at night or in the morning, or it's been raining, sometimes it's a little dewy out, or let's be real, the bugs.
Mosquitoes. You
It'll
need to
help.
shoot a throw at a mosquito.
Yeah. It'll help protect at least our ankles wearing our little mer boots.
Yeah. So
But
she went over
everybody-
like 6 different terms there.
But everybody needs a pair. I mean, you will see like babies all the way up to sourdoughs.
Extra toughs are awesome. They
They're-
are wonderful shoes.
And they're reliable
Mhm.
and they're sturdy.
And they're not cheap.
No.
They're like $60 to $80, but they last.
You pay for what you get for, and they do last.
They do last. Okay, so we've talked about lower 48. The other term you might hear is outside of Alaska or outside.
Northern Lights or
Aurora Borealis. So you hear, the Northern Lights are out. That's the Aurora Borealis. It's the night lights.
And I'll tell you what, as an Alaskan, it never gets old. Like we will get text messages and we'll see it on our Facebook feed and our social media feed. Like when they're out, everybody runs out. Hey, the Northern Lights are out.
And there is a Aurora Borealis calendar online to tell you what's likelihood of the aurora being out in that particular time. So you can go online and look that up. But yeah, you're right. It's like seeing a moose. Everybody still goes, "Oh, squirrel."
Yeah, no, they go moose.
Moose. Don't hit it.
But with the Northern Lights, summertime, is that the
Nah.
best time to see them?
Worst. There's no lights. It'd get dark.
Land of the midnight sun.
That is correct. That is another term you'll hear. And they do midnight on the solstice in Anchorage. They do midnight softball tournament.
Yeah. And the longest day of the year is June 21st.
The day before our anniversary.
Yep. We got married June 22nd, 2000.
We did. So breakup. What's breakup?
Breakup is what happens in the spring. That's when the snow and the ice is melting and it breaks up.
It is the nastiest, messiest time of year in Alaska.
And
it's
not
usually
magical.
April to May, depending on the year.
Yeah, and it's not magical. So when Chris and I left for the full-time RV life back in April of 21, we still had about 4 feet of snow in our front yard.
Yep. And like I said, sometimes it's gone by April, sometimes it's gone in May, but either way, breakup is breakup. It can mean that somebody broke up, but generally speaking,
when they talk about breakup, it's the winter breakup. So where it's starting to break loose, in the road grime, it just turns it kind of brown and just nasty, and you get it on your car. I mean, when we lived there, we had a monthly membership to the car dealership because we
would car wash, not dealership.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. The car wash.
Yes.
And just to get that all off because you don't want the road grime sitting on your car.
Since we're talking about that, what's a winter car wash? Do you remember what we used to do with the squeegees?
Winter car. Yeah. When you fill up at the gas station, you just wash the windows down with the squeegees and the solution that they have at the gas station and use the paper towels to wipe it off.
And then you do headlights and taillights and the rest of your car looks like a brown turd, but like at least you got your headlights clean and your windshield's clean. That's an Alaskan car wash in the winter.
All the vital importance. And then you would put your windshield wipers up, which we have a funny story about that. You put your windshield wipers up when it's kind of like freezy rain and snow.
So they don't freeze to the windshield.
Yeah. So at the RV Unplugged rally, our neighbors across the street, Talmadge and Ashanti's from Alaska. So the funny part was she put the windshield wiper blades up on their vehicles, our vehicles, and all around anyone that was part of RV Unplugged. And then later on that next day, she asked if we had saw it. And I was like, yeah. She's like, did that make you mad? I was like, no. And we told her who we thought it was because their windshield wipers were down.
Right.
And then she laughed. She goes, no, that was me. And I told her, I told Chris that was so Alaskan thing to do.
Absolutely. Even though it wasn't going to snow in Florida.
No, but it was funny.
Yeah, it was. So what's a suicide run?
That is something you do in the summertime when you are fishing. It's
a terrible term, but it goes back to that not a sensitive thing. Most of the time, what it truly means is somebody that worked all day long, gets off work, drives to wherever they're going, fishes all night, and then drives home.
Yeah, so back when we lived there, Chris and I, we would do suicide runs. So we're working Monday through Friday because we have office jobs.
Yeah.
And then right after Friday, because the fishing limit opens, there's certain areas where we're going to fish and it opens at like 11, 12 o'clock. We want to,
Midnight.
midnight.
Yeah.
We want to get up there, catch our limit, and then go back, catch our limit technically the next day,
Yeah.
and then just drive back. So
Yeah.
you
So if
stock
you
up
get
on
there,
some
if
fish.
you get there Friday night, you could catch your limit, and then you fish overnight. And as long as your fish are processed, which we would go drop it off at a
Yeah.
processor Saturday morning, you can go back and catch your limit again. And so you could get Friday, Saturday, Sunday limits on a weekend. So you would drive all night. So if you hear the term suicide run, that's what they're talking about: getting off work, driving to go fishing, fishing all night long. It is dangerous. Seriously, I don't recommend it at all. When we were young and dumb in our 20s, we would do it.
Yeah.
There's no way in God's green earth I would do that right now.
I mean, it was a way for us back then when we had limited time off and stuff to catch our limit on fish, both of us, and stock our freezers to feed our families.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Yes.
but you'll hear that. I mean, it's fun to be out there in the atmosphere. It's just the energy is just it's amazing.
Yeah, and when you're catching fish, you're not tired. It's when you drive home that gets sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, talking about that, what is the subsistence lifestyle?
So that one is where you're basically hunting and fishing and just living off the land. So when Chris and I lived there, we would hunt for moose and caribou, and in our garage we had a freezer dedicated just for caribou and moose. We had another chest freezer dedicated for fish. It's like
Yep.
halibut and salmon.
And that's the subsistence lifestyle. So that's something a lot of people up there embrace. So you might hear things like that. You might also hear PFD,
Yes,
and that is not personal flotation device.
it is not.
Tell them what it is.
That is money that Alaskans get if you're Alaskan resident every year. As long, I mean, there's like rules and regulations, but you get money from.
The state. It's for the oil
Thank you.
revenues. I know she's having a brain fart there.
I am.
So yeah, it's the oil revenues
Mhm.
that are split amongst the citizens or residents of Alaska. So if you hear PFD, or a PFD check or a dividend is another term they use
That
for
comes
that.
in October, and we would get ours direct deposit, not a check.
And all of a sudden, every store in Alaska has a sale.
Yeah, it's like a holiday. You have like Labor Day sales and back to school sales and
Right.
Black Friday. There's a PFD sale. Like you can have that spent before it hits your bank account.
Right. Yeah. and people be like, oh, well, we're PFD rich.
Yeah, for a minute.
Right. So the Alaska Marine Highway System, we talked about that in our earlier episodes. It's called the ferry system is
Yes.
another term for that. Look it up. It's worth an option to go in or out of Alaska to see something different if you're going up with the RV. But so just know Alaska Marine Highway, it is ways you can get around the state.
Yeah, it is a little spendy, but we've done that before. I mean, we've traveled every which way to Alaska.
Yeah, exactly. One thing we haven't done that's on here?
The Alaska cruise?
Nope, the railroad.
Oh, yeah, the railroad and the Alaska cruise, the actual cruise.
It's, I don't know. I want to do an Alaska cruise, but it's hard to justify it. We've done the Inside Passage a couple different times on the ferry. It's the same stops.
Yeah, and I'm from Southeast, so I'm from Juneau, and I've traveled all over Southeast and Central, and I've even made it to Fairbanks. But
yep, we need to do the railroad though. So let's talk about the term Alcan.
All right, go for it, because we have been on the Alcan.
So that is the Alaskan Canadian Highway. It is a combined highway that the military put back into the 40s to get from the lower 48 up to Alaska. And we do have an agreement to travel through Canada. It's not an absolute. You can get thrown out of the country. If you haven't seen that, watch our first episode.
Kicked out of Canada.
Or listen to our first episode.
All right, let's talk about different campgrounds, and are they like 5-star resorts, and what's the reality of campgrounds?
Alaskan is the last frontier.
What?
Right. That means that the odds of finding Camp Margaritaville, Splash RV Resort, Blue Green Timeshares,
Disney Fort Wilderness,
0. You are going to get full hookups, meaning you will have water, you will have power, maybe a septic, depending on where you go. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
It's just like a state park. Sometimes you may have a dump nearby. I mean, there's gas stations where you can dump.
That's probably your best comparison, is to think of a rustic state park in the lower 48, that's your average RV park in Alaska. It's
Yeah.
they are there because they give you what you need without all the stuff you don't need, meaning none of the luxury resort stuff. So just know that going into that. Think of every RV park that you went into, they would have been like 3 stars. That's Alaska.
Keep in mind too, like some of the places may not be as glamorous as others, but also to the golden rule, like do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. There's many people that travel to Alaska in their RV up there every summer. And some Alaskans may travel in their RV, but everyone's got to do their part of keeping it clean, just as everyone everywhere else. Because
Right.
we've been to RV parks where they have not been kept clean in the lower 48.
Oh, they were nasty. We've
But
seen
keep in mind, there's all kinds of travelers,
so
not just Alaskans at the campgrounds.
right.
There's people from all over, from the lower 48 and maybe Hawaii.
Yep.
So
Just know that your campgrounds are your rudimentary basic campgrounds, and the owners are probably mom and pops. There's very few corporate places up there, and these are just hardworking Alaskans that live the lifestyle, that get things done. So you may not have everything that matches in a room.
yeah,
Like I think about some of the dry cabins we stayed in, or the lodges that we've
yes,
went through. These are places like if it was a hotel in the lower 48, you'd be like, I'm not staying in this place.
yeah.
Right. Let's be real. So like if you get out on you get out on say the oh goodness gracious, Denali Highway. I had to take a second there. If you get out on the Denali Highway and you start to go into some of those lodges,
hmm
they're basic.
They're basic. They could be mismatched, and a lot of this is seasonal for the owners. So we know many people in Alaska that they have multiple different types of businesses depending on the season.
Yeah.
We'll say, like my cousin and husband, for instance,
Yeah.
they have a car dealership, they have a rental lot, they also have a snowplow business, they have a tow truck. I mean, there's many hats they wear, and it's just
If
seasonal.
Yeah, so they can make a living year round
Annual and
because
seasonal.
yep. Just know that when you're going up there, get your mind right about it. Restaurants are not going to be like there's some really nice
Oh yeah.
restaurants in the cities. So Juneau, Anchorage, Fairbanks,
Yeah.
there's some nice
And the
restaurants.
resorts like Alyeska, which is a ski resort. I mean, there's nice.
Right. But most of the time, you're going to be mom and pop's places.
You're gonna have that rustic charm. Just
Right. The
just know
food's
that.
going to be great. The people are going to be awesome. The decor may not be what you're used to.
And what we noticed too, and we've said this before on like where to eat and all that in Alaska, like those outer areas, a lot of times they get folks that come up from any of the states.
Yeah.
And they'll come and work during the summer. So your wait staff may be from like Tennessee.
Right. There's a lot of that. A lot of
Mhm.
summer jobs, especially in the Kenai Peninsula,
Yeah.
because there's so many jobs during there the summer for work from a fishing perspective that you're right. The wait staff are a lot of college kids and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we both agree that the summertime in Alaska is the best time.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, unless you like the snow and
Yeah, then it's a great time. If you're
come
if
ski,
you're an alpine
snowboard.
skier and you want to snowboard and you love tubing, there's a cool place to go tubing.
Yeah, there was a place we went tubing where they have it attached to this little track.
It
And
tows you.
It tows you. You sit in the tube and it just like takes you up there. That was fun.
Yeah, you get towed up and you tube down. I mean, this is a lazy man's tubing. But just the summary on the RV parks is you get what you need, not always the luxuries that you're expecting. So as long as you understand that Alaskans are different and
Mhm.
their approach is different, and it's more about you get what works and what you need to survive, then you're fine. Just don't go up there expecting Ritz Carlton and you're good.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's talk. We got some more terms here.
Okay.
What's Furrondi?
For Rondi. So that's the start of the Iditarod.
It
So
it is in Anchorage, and it's the Fur Rendezvous Festival. Fur meaning FUR, like in trading fur. So it's a very old originated beginning of the dog sled race and fur traders that would come in. But now it's just a big party in Anchorage.
it is. And you can buy a lot of amazing art and decor.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
cool stuff. A lot of really cool native crafts. So
Mhm.
the only bad part is it's in February.
Well, they need the snow.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're not going to be dog sledding. We've seen some hilarious crap on dog sleds where they're pulling ATVs and when they're training. But anyways, I digress. So if you hear the term ANWR, Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, ANWR. So that one is always politically sensitive because mainly that's Prudhoe Bay. That's the area up in northern Alaska where a lot of the oil comes from. So if you hear ANWR, that's what it is. You can explain this one. Blanket toss.
You got to make sure you got a really strong group that's holding the blanket. It's a native game,
Yeah.
and there's going to be people holding the blanket, which we've been a part of, and someone will sit in the middle, and then you toss them up.
Yeah, you literally think of it like it's almost like a trampoline,
It,
except it's
it's
people on a blanket, and
yeah,
man, you can launch
and
people.
traditionally it's walrus hide.
Let's see, we've gone over. Oh, let me talk about this one, bunny boots. So if you hear the term bunny boots, or you see a sign that says bunny boots, they're not rabbit.
Yeah.
They are white boots that usually the Army and the Air Force up there are issuing to the troops for going out in Arctic conditions in the winter. So they will keep you from losing your digits. And they are super thick insulation, like inch to 2 inches of wool insulation inside. And yeah, they're cool, but they weigh a ton and you look like a dork wearing them because you walk funny.
Chris Shinook, he had a pair issued to him when he was stationed there with the Air Force.
Yeah, let's talk about what happens right before breakup. Cabin fever.
Yes. Some people don't fare well in the winter. I mean, the darkest day is December 21st, just like June 21st is the longest day.
Yeah.
So from June 21st on to December 21st, you're going to lose a little bit of daylight per day. So it's very gradual. And then one day you wake up and it just feels like it's just dark all the time.
Yep.
Depending on type, like what your schedule is like. And a lot of people use those happy lights.
Yeah.
Or take a lot of vitamin D. We would have to do vitamin D because it kind of gets depressing if there's not a lot of light. You don't get that natural vitamin D.
Yeah, it's called a seasonal affective disorder. You also
Mhm.
hear people talk about SAD disease.
Yeah.
That's what it is, seasonal affective disorder. So it's the lack of daylight that can make a big difference. We are very fortunate that we've never had a problem with that in the winter. Like you said, we took a crap ton of vitamin D because
Mhm.
that's what you get from the sun. And we just forced ourselves to get out and go do things.
And there's times that we've taken trips outside of Alaska during that time. A lot of our friends, they'll do that. They'll take trips like to Hawaii in January, February, or just down in the lower 48, just to kind of like break up the winter.
Yep. So you'll hear another term that's not used as much. It's called the Chinook. It's also the name of a salmon.
Mhm.
But it's basically when you get warm winds in the winter. And occasionally that happens where things will thaw in the middle of winter and just make a mess because the refreeze, whew, bad.
Mhm.
Ice storms.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And next term is dipnetting. That's something Chris and I love doing, but you have to be an Alaska resident and have a permit for.
but it's still, if they're doing dip netting, it's still worth going and
Oh
seeing
yeah.
as a visitor. It's something that I would go down and go down to the Kenai area and go watch because it's really cool.
And what is it?
It's literally using a fishing net to catch fish as they swim in the river. No rod, no reel. You're just scooping them up in a net.
Now, it's not the typical fishing net. There's actual dip nets, so they're a lot wider.
Yeah, they're
And
like 5 foot circle diameters.
yeah, and then on a long pole. So certain areas like Chris and I, we would dip net, and I would tell him, "Hey, I'll just meet you down here because I can't go out that far because sometimes where the fish are running, Chris could get to it because I'm too short."
Right.
Yeah.
And it's super dangerous depending on where you go. We really loved going over to the Copper River, but boy,
Mhm.
it's that can be sketch. We had a guy fall in when we were dip netting
Yeah.
and we got lucky. He wasn't part of our group, but
Yeah.
we were able to grab him and rip him out because the Copper River, you
Mhm.
fall in there, the odds of survival are really slim
Yeah.
because that's a crazy big river. So people actually we used to tie ourselves off with ropes.
Mhm. And that's where the whole community ties back in because if you are just out enjoying nature, fishing, whatever, hiking, something could happen just like anywhere else in the world. But the community in Alaska, I mean, we're resourceful. There are times where you and a group of friends found the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, we saved them on the Kenai River.
Mhm.
They hit a down tree in the middle of the Kenai River. They flipped over their raft, and there was, I think it was about 6
Mhm.
Boy Scouts that were literally floating down the river on the Kenai, which is huge. And we just happened to be at the right place at the right time. So we grabbed the kids, we grabbed the raft, we went after another one. We managed to get
And the
everybody
troop leader.
and the troop leader. We
Yeah.
managed to get every single one of them back. And then, of course, when we go out there, we have spare clothes because you got to stay warm. If
Yeah.
you get wet, you can die of hypothermia. So
Emergency blankets, like all that whole survival kit.
yeah, so we saved literally a Boy Scout troop out of the Kenai River.
And they had a ceremony for Chris and the other group of guys that he was with at the time. And
Yeah,
that was just, that just kind of makes you think about it. And it's just like community is a beautiful thing because you guys didn't know any of them and
Mm-mm.
you saved their lives.
Yeah, and then we had them on our boat and we floated them all out and got them back to safety, and everybody went home safe at the end of the day. But I guess that kind of goes back to that whole community thing. The other thing is if somebody's broke down in Alaska, pull over.
Yes.
Help them. Do not leave somebody stranded on the side of the road anywhere and think somebody else will be there to help them. You might be it, depending on where you're at, and you might be the only resource.
Yeah, help in ever which way that you can feel comfortably helping.
Right.
Now, if there's, whether it's making a phone call or, providing a meal, a blanket, helping with a change of tire, do unto others as you'd have others do unto you.
There you
Golden
go.
rule.
That's kind of it. I'm kind of going through because there's a ton of them. Let's talk about some of the funny ones.
Okay.
Let's talk about muckalucks. You want me to cover muckalucks?
Go for it.
So those are native boots, and the term native, I guess you should know, is not a slang term, and it is not a derogatory term.
And not every native is Eskimo. So I'm from the Tlingit tribe.
There's a lot of tribes, and they're all different. But the term native is acceptable for indigenous people of Alaska, so you know that. Muckalucks, anyways, fur boots. So those were made by the Yupiks, and what it is it's basically they take the leather with the fur on them and they turn them inside out, so the leather's on the outside and the fur's on the inside, and they sew them up into boots or moccasins or slippers just to keep your feet out of the snow and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about mucktuck?
Whale skin with fat. It's not something my tribe ate,
but if you hear the term mucktuck, it's whale blubber, and it is that's very important to a lot of the northern tribes.
The cool part about that is, so I used to work for South Central Foundation, so Native Healthcare, and they're in Anchorage, but they also service outside of Anchorage in the rural areas and all that. So they like to keep things tradition. So if you're there at a hospital stay, you could actually get mucktuck and different Native traditional foods.
This one's funny because I've actually seen these. An usik. So if somebody asks if you want to buy an usik,
go for it.
Oh, God, you're wrong. That is the bone of the walrus penis. I'm not making this up. That is not an exaggeration. It is a real thing. People actually give out the Usik Award to the company that has the biggest joke advertising every year. So Usiks are a real thing. They're walrus penises.
They probably get the smallest Usik.
I'm not judging one way or the other.
All right, so permafrost.
Permafrost is a pain in the butt. It's frozen ground that generally causes frost heaves. So the permafrost is basically the first, I'll make it up, 4 feet of the ground is froze solid and stays frozen. Thus perma, and then frost being frozen. And then frost heaves are where the ground actually raises and lowers based on the permafrost, which creates all kinds of problems on the travel, especially in the Yukon Territory or northern Alaska as a whole.
1 week wonder.
No, God. That's a derogatory term. Who did a week or 2 weeks in Alaska and all of a sudden thinks they know everything about everything.
Teach you how to be local,
right? We spent a week there. We know everything. You don't know.
No.
Shh. You don't know. Shh. Can't say the rest of that. I don't want to make the tube world mad.
1 week wonder.
Yeah, no. If you've been up there a week or two, don't try to tell anybody anything. You're a Chicho. You got to earn that.
Yes.
Earn it. All right. So tundra, that's another one I think people should know. That's a lot of Alaska is tundra. It's basically low-lying vegetation and trees, or shrubs without trees.
Yes.
So a lot of the places we would hunt was tundra. It's an absolute pain in the butt to walk through, because all the trees and shrubbery can be anywhere from a foot to 7 feet tall. Makes it really hard to get through.
And then ULU.
ULU. You want to cover that one? You know exactly what that is. You got one downstairs.
So that's a native Alaskan knife, which is still used today. I have one. Our daughter has ours from my dad. Actually, let's see.
Up there.
Yeah, up here. So that one was my parents.
Yep. So that's an ULU. It's a curved knife that they use for everything. Yeah.
And we bought one from the ULU factory when we went to go live full time. And that one we keep with us.
Yep.
Yeah. That one's too precious now that my parents are passed, and it's a decor.
Yeah. So let's talk about 10 pros or cons to living in Alaska as a whole. So if you are thinking about, well, the RV life is awesome. I fell in love. I want to be a sourdough. I'm going to go live off the land. Here's 10 things you might want to think about.
Yes. Now, for us, well, I'm from there, so it's home for me. So, but collectively, so pro outdoor recreation.
Oh my God. That
Yes,
is the reason.
it
Hunting,
is.
fishing, camping, hiking, backpacking, you name it. If it's outdoors, you can do it there. So let's talk about what's not so great. We've touched on this a little bit. Midnight sun. That can actually be a pain in the butt. Having night or daylight all night long in the summer, it catch you off guard. It'd be 11 o'clock at night. And if you got to start work at 6 in the morning, you're like, crap.
And just know different areas of Alaska, it's going to affect differently. So I didn't notice it as much in Juneau in Southeast.
Right.
And that one was more compatible with like Seattle weather.
Mm-hmm. But
So, but
way north, you
yeah,
really notice it.
Anchorage, Fairbanks, the further north you go, it's going to be more drastic.
Yep. And in the opposite, winter, you touched on this already.
Yes.
Dark, cold, long. So,
Oh gosh, the beautiful wildlife. Like for us, Chris and I, we are nature lovers. We love to explore. I mean, the whole reason why we did move from Alaska was to kind of see the different beauty throughout the lower 48
explore.
and explore. But we've always international traveled.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's not new.
The wildlife in Alaska is wild. And when I say wild, I mean like moose will walk in the door of the damn hospital. It's happened. I had bears in the trash cans on the military base on Elmendorf.
Yeah. When I was a behavioral health care recruiter for South Central Foundation, moose would come up and eat the beautiful flowers that our company would have planted right outside our window. And the moose would just walk up to the window and just eat the flowers.
The funnest part about moose is Halloween.
Okay. So have you ever carved a pumpkin?
Of
Left it on
course.
your porch because that's what you do, right?
Of course.
Well, the moose in Alaska say thank you, that it's delicious.
You come out and there's chunks of pumpkin left because they ate your pumpkin.
Just know they will eat your pumpkin.
Wildlife are wild.
Yeah.
And
we've had lynx fighting outside on our street.
yeah, that's a whole new term to cat fight.
Yeah.
We thought people were dying.
We did. We looked out the window because we have binoculars. We looked out the window. I mean, because that's where our house was. It was a little more rural. But we're like, holy moly, there's lynx out there fighting. And we're going to let them live their best life.
Gone, kitty.
We ain't breaking up that cat fight.
Right.
And they're bears. So I know one time, like I was driving back way home and there was like a mom and her cubs and everyone pulls over. So just know if there's wildlife around, it doesn't matter if you're Alaskan or if you're visiting or whatever, people will pull over and just you let the bears, you let the moose, you let them have the road.
They get the right of way.
They get the right of way.
Yep. And don't get out of the damn car and try to take a selfie with them.
Yes. Don't go and pet them and don't try to feed them because that is all bad.
Well, you may end up feeding them yourself, right?
Please don't.
Please don't.
Because then what happens is that they will actually transplant or they will put down the moose or bear and all that.
Right, because they become accustomed to people and it becomes a safety issue. So just leave the critters alone.
Yeah.
So the fourth thing that we want to cover on this part is it's a con, and it's the harsh weather. The weather in Alaska, even in the summer, can be really crappy. Like August at the state fair can be nasty.
Yeah, the state fair is in Palmer, Alaska, and it's like 2 weeks, and it ends on Labor Day. The first week is usually not so bad. The second week, it starts getting rainy and gloomy.
It's kind of a turning point for Alaska. Like the locals know by the time you're done with the state fair, it's like, oh crap, we're head first into winter. By October, it's going to be frozen and snowing.
By Halloween, there's snow on the ground, so you got to be mindful if you have kids up there and they dress up for Halloween, what kind of outfits they wear because they're going to have their coats over it.
Yep. So weather can be nasty. We touched about number 5 pretty well.
The nature beauty. I mean, even if you don't hunt or fish and all that, there's a lot of bird watching. So like right outside of Anchorage, what's that little area called?
Potter's Marsh.
Yes. They have different decks that go out there in different parts
of the water.
It's world
renowned for all the different birds that get in there migratory every year.
Yeah. The next time we go up there, we will show you that because there's all kinds of birds out there and it's just breathtaking.
Yeah. So the natural beauty of Alaska, that's why you're there. You're there for it. So
this one's a pro and con.
Right.
Isolated in remote towns.
That could be a big pro if you just want to live off the land and get away from everything.
Yeah. But the con is like, hospitals and clinics and stuff like that. I mean, grocery
Bush
store,
groceries.
limited access to stores and, deliveries.
Right. So the next one is definitely a pro. No state income tax, so off your income at all. And in some areas, no even sales tax.
Yeah, like Anchorage has no sales tax.
But Anchorage has a 1.32% property tax. So they have a very high property tax. That's where they get their money. Okay. But no state income tax, no sales tax in a lot of areas, and the permanent fund dividend, right? We'll lump that in there with it.
Yeah.
Because that's oil money, anywhere between $900 to $2,000 a year.
And if you're Alaska Native Indian from a federally recognized tribe in Alaska, you could get dividends
from your corporations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. But not a lot. It's not like the lower 48s where they have casinos.
It depends on your tribe. It depends on your tribe.
Yours, not so much.
My tribe's like rabbits.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's the next one? This is going to throw people off a little bit.
The high cost of living. So just know things will cost more up there, and especially the more remote. You said you've gone to the bush and villages and stuff out there, and there was like, was it a quart or pint of milk for like $10? And that was back in 2014, 15.
It was a half gallon, and it was $12. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Half a gallon of milk for $12, and that's, like you said, almost 10 years ago. It's been I'm sure it's way more. So on average, just figure that food's going to be 30% higher than it is anywhere else. It's not going to be nearly as fresh, with a caveat. There is a lot of farmers markets.
Yes.
Buy local, buy fresh, you'll get a better deal.
And there's a U-Pick farm, and, you can grow your own. There's homesteads. Yeah.
Right. So there is a higher cost of living. The average house is about $400,000 in any major city. And I say major, I'm talking, that's relative term. Anchorage, Juneau, Fairbanks, things like that. Those are about 400.
Location.
Right. Real estate matters. So 400,000. And then overall, you can still live really well up there because there's a lot of things that are cheaper, like auto insurance.
Yes. And you just adapt. Just like anywhere you're going to live or have a home base, you just adapt to what you are in. Now, a huge pro especially, is fresh and local seafood.
Oh my God. if you like seafood, the easy ones are the 5 species of salmon. You can get those from anywhere off the shore. You can go halibut fishing on charters, and you can actually fish off the shore in some areas for halibut. But that's easy access. But you can get things like, you can get shrimp. You can go. A lot of people fly to Hawaii. But, the seafood in Alaska, unlike any other.
I will say, Chris and I have a hard time buying any type of seafood. We will buy like local, or when we go out to a restaurant like Key West and stuff like that, we will only want fresh seafood that's local.
Yeah.
We have a hard time buying salmon outside. We don't buy Atlantic farm salmon. That's different. We love the wild Alaskan salmon. There is a difference.
Right. And I know people argue that Atlantic salmon is farmed, so it's sustainable. I agree 100%. But it's just what you like.
What you like and what you've been growing up and used to and prefer. Yep.
So the last thing
one more thing on that. If you, like when Chris and I lived there and we had a freezer full of fish, of salmon and stuff, and halibut, the other freezer full of moose and caribou, we have friends like your friend Mark. We would trade and get like shrimp or crab. Yeah. And that's the cool thing about community.
Yeah. He's like, hey, I don't have a lot of reds, coho salmon, or excuse me. I think I got that. Oh my God, I got that wrong on my head. But anyways, we'd always call him red salmon.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a lot of reds, but he had a lot of halibut.
Yeah.
Because he had a big boat and he can go way out and get halibut. So we would trade reds for halibut or shrimp for,
Yeah. And just depending what's going on. Or my favorite part was smoking the salmon towards the end of the season.
Well, a lot of times we would do that in the spring. If we had salmon left over and we knew that we were going back into the next fishing season and there was plenty left, we would smoke up a bunch of it and then vacuum seal it and freeze it. And that way it preserved it.
Yes. It's like salmon candy crack.
Yes. So, of course, the con that everybody knows about, there is really is a swarm of mosquitoes up there. There's a lot of flinging mosquitoes. So you do have to have bug spray all the time.
Yeah. We use Ben's 100% DEET. It's in an orange bottle with black lettering and a black cap.
So far, I haven't grown a third arm or my eyeball hasn't fallen out, but I'm sure it's not good for you.
Don't put it in your eyes and don't on your fingers and
try not to get it on your skin. Put it on your clothes.
Yes. and like
That's
the inside of your hat, that sort of thing. Keep it out of your eyes and
yep.
mouth. And
So we have talked their ear off about terms, styles, things, mindset, opportunities.
yeah,
I hope this helps.
I hope so too. I mean, we've already in the other series we've talked about, planning, what to expect going through Canada, traveling with a pet, the different type of safety equipment that you may need,
Yep.
different places to eat and what to
If
do.
you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to us on the podcast platforms, you can reach us at venturesomecouple.com, send us a message, shoot us an email, go on any of the social media platforms, send us a message. But let us know if there's other Alaska topics. We realized we left a gaping hole by not giving you guys the mindset up front and
Yeah.
some of the terminology to make life a little easier on you.
Yes. And I'm excited for our next trip back up to Alaska next summer.
Woot woot. Off we go back to the Alaska frontier.
I know we're excited. We have debated on doing a little caravan, but
We'll see.
we'll see.
We'll see.
Let us know what you think down below in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, we thank you. Don't forget to smash that like button. Subscribe if you have not subscribed already. If you're listening to it on our podcast, we thank you.
Absolutely. But most importantly,
Enjoy every moment.